What can we learn from last night's disastrous Sunday night football game against the Green Bay Packers? What's going on, everybody? Good morning. No, not really. We're alive, we're awake. That's about the only thing that's good. It's going to be a tough week, guys. It's going to be a tough week. It's going to be a tough week for us as fans. It's going to be a tough week for me as a video maker on Seahawks stuff. Like that's the kind of game, that's the kind of effort that makes you wonder if you even want to be putting in the work, right? Because I typically post like 5 videos a day on Seahawks stuff, 4 to 5 on average. And this is one of those weeks where you're just like, man, I got to work to get my enthusiasm up because of how bad that effort was. And it's not the first time we played that bad this season, but I came into this one expecting a lot better, and I think I had reason to expect better. But we got to talk a little bit about this quarterback thing because yesterday was a disaster in the quarterback department, but it's also a chance to maybe learn something. So, first, let me get this out of the way because a lot of people are going to be asking. As of me recording this video, I don't know very much about Geno Smith and his status. As of me recording this video, the most recent information I have is from this article from Brady Henderson, which was posted late last night about the Geno Smith knee injury. McDonald's quote was, "It was severe enough for him to not come back in the game. We'll do all the tests tomorrow and kind of figure it out as we go. But right now, structurally, it looks like it's okay. But we've got to get it imaged and all that stuff." So basically, what I know right now is it's not some devastating Achilles or ACL tear or broken leg or anything like that. And I think we kind of knew that based on the fact that he was walking around and he came out of the locker room after getting it looked at. But that doesn't mean he's fine. And it doesn't mean he's going to be able to play this week. So just to get that out of the way, I don't know what's going on right now. And I will make a video as soon as we know more. But as of me recording this video, which obviously I record the video before it gets posted, I can't tell you if he's going to miss the Vikings game. I can't tell you if he's going to miss the Bears game. All I can tell you is that it's not a complete disaster. So, that being said, that's not what this video is about. I'll make a video dedicated to just the injury update when we get the injury update. I want to talk a little bit about something that could be used as a learning opportunity for us Seahawks fans and football fans in general. So, first of all, I understand that Geno Smith did not play his best game for the roughly half of football that he was in. Really, it was just one bad throw. Honestly, I think that even the people who are a little more neutral on Geno would acknowledge that other than the one really bad throw, he actually played fairly well. It's just the one bad throw was really bad. So it wasn't his best game, and yet it was impossible to not notice the stark and massive and undeniable difference in the play of Geno Smith and the play of Sam Howell. When you compared what Geno Smith was doing and the way that he looked and the way that he ran the offense compared to what Sam Howell did, it was staggering. It wasn't a contest. It looked like the story that the beat reporters and the viewers of practice told us back in like June and July, when we were told that based on 7-on-7 drills, based on practice sessions, based on simulated game situations, Geno Smith was head and shoulders above Sam Howell. And we got a glimpse at that last night. You can look at the numbers. I got the numbers up on screen right now. Geno Smith, the interception, like being the one really bad throw. Other than that, his numbers were quite good. And then Sam Howell comes in the game like midway to early-ish through the third quarter, and you can see how this stat line resembles the stat line of like a third string quarterback or a punter who gets thrown into the quarterback role because the two quarterbacks in front of him got hurt. So it's a pretty big difference here, and they're both playing against the same defense, at least in terms of personnel. I'm not saying they're playing the exact same way, but you're at least getting something, some sort of an even comparison here. It's never going to be perfect. I'm sure Green Bay changed their strategy when they realized Sam Howell was playing, but you get at least an idea of the difference between the two players. And it's not just the straight numbers. Like, look at this tweet from Benjamin Solik. Sam Howell had exactly 19 dropbacks and only completed 5 passes. That, what I just said, 19 or more dropbacks and 5 or fewer completed passes, has happened 20 times in the last 25 seasons. And in fairness, there are actually some fairly good quarterbacks here. You got Eli Manning, you got Ben Roethlisberger, you got Peyton Manning, although I do remember this game. This was the game that got Peyton Manning benched for like a month at the end of the Broncos season. Cam Newton's here. So there are some pretty good quarterbacks here, interestingly enough, but I wouldn't say there were any good games here. I don't think you could point to any of these games and say, oh, the quarterback actually played good. So that gives you an idea of how bad the game was. It was the kind of bad that you see on average about once a season. And there's stuff that can be said about that. I could spend a video talking about how Sam Howell should be embarrassed that he played that poorly and he needs to do better. I can make a video talking about how John Schneider should be embarrassed and roasted for trading for a guy who can play that badly. I could talk about how frustrating it is that we gave up not a big asset, but an asset for this guy, for him to not even be able to go out there and do effective cleanup duty. Like, I wasn't even asking him to go out there and win the game. Just go out there and show me that you can do the basics. And he can't do it. He couldn't do it. I think he completed like one semi-decent pass the whole game. Everything else was like a check down. He had the interception, obviously. There was like literally one good Sam Howell play, I think, that whole second half. So I could talk about that stuff, but that's not really what I'm going to talk about in this video, because I think that there's something else that you can take away from this that is more important. Because here's the thing. Should Sam Howell be roasted for how badly he played yesterday? Yeah. Sam Howell was a draft pick. Sam Howell was a player that was very good in college and was drafted by a team with the expectation that he would at least be a competent NFL player. And the fact that he went out there and looked like the punter, he literally looked like Michael Dixon went out there. I think Michael Dixon probably could have done better than Sam Howell if you had tossed him into the game. That's really bad. But here's the thing. We know that Sam Howell is capable of doing a lot better than that because we saw it. You can go back to last year. These are his game logs from last year. There are some games where he played great, and then there are some games where he played bad. There might be 1 or 2 games here where he played atrociously. But you will not really find that many games where he looked that bad. You've got this game against Buffalo, where he threw 4 picks and the team scored 3 points. You got this game against New York, where somehow he completed 6 passes and his team scored 28 points. So it's not like this has never happened before. He does have some stinkers here, but he also has some good games here, some decent games here, and the big picture here, the thing that I pulled this up to talk about, is that on the whole, he looked like a player that belonged in the NFL, right? Like, he wasn't good. Don't get me wrong. Sam Howell was not good last year for the Washington Commanders, but he did throw for almost 4,000 yards. He ran for another 260, 21 touchdowns. he looked like somebody who could at least play the position. Now, I think he led the league in interceptions, and I believe he also led the league in sacks taken. So I'm not trying to argue he was good, but what I would try to argue is that he at least looked like somebody who knew what he was doing at the position most of the time. You could probably point to this Jets game as maybe a little bit of a example that this guy isn't good, but the overall performance in the 2023 season was at least indicative of some kind of promise. And that Washington team last year, like, they were obviously mostly bad, right? They had a decent receiver core. Their offensive line was kind of sort of okay-ish. I mean, Washington has one of the best offenses in the league this year with Jaden Daniels, so I don't think you can say that last year's Washington offense was that bad, but it wasn't great, I don't think. I don't think Washington was putting him in a great situation to succeed. He did have some nice things going in his favor, like he had some pretty decent receivers. I think the offensive line was okay-ish. I know he got sacked a lot, but that has a lot to do with Sam Howell. I think we learned yesterday that Sam Howell brings a lot of those sacks on himself. So what I'm trying to say here is that we know Sam Howell is fully capable of playing decent football, right? Like, if you look at this performance over the course of a season, you would say that Sam Howell is one of the, if he was a starting quarterback, is one of the worst starting quarterbacks in the league. But he's better than a few starters, right? Like, if you looked at starters right now, he's better than Mac Jones, probably. Maybe he's about as good as Mac Jones. Maybe he's about as good as Justin Fields. You'd probably find a couple others. He's better than whoever Miami puts in when Tua gets hurt. That's another one, right? He's better than Skylar Thompson. Mostly the quarterbacks that he's better than are quarterbacks who are either very, very young, like they're rookies. Like, he's better than Spencer Rattler. He's better than Jake Hayner. He should be capable of doing things at a baseline level. And I know it's just one half of one game. And I know he got thrown in the middle of the game when he wasn't expecting to have to play last night. But at the same time, we see quarterbacks go in and play passable football in the middle of a game all the time. We see backup quarterbacks go into a game, last 2 quarters, sometimes even the last 3 quarters, and they don't look that bad. And yes, that is a little bit of an indictment on Howell and how bad he was last night. It's also an indictment on this team and how they support their quarterback, and that's what I'm trying to get to here. And I know this was kind of a really long-winded way of getting there. What I'm trying to say is, if the Washington Commanders last year were able to support their quarterback enough to at least get him to the point where he was serviceable as a starter, like one of the worst starters, but not the worst starter in the league, like something roughly around the Daniel Jones level, or, better than a Tommy DeVito type quarterback, and he was able to put up respectable numbers, like passable numbers, then why does he go to Seattle and look like a punter? And I think the answer is quite simply this team does not do a good job of supporting their quarterback. And I say this because I think some people believe this Seahawks team should be some kind of a hotbed for producing really good quarterback play. Like, I have seen people try to blow off Geno Smith's successes by saying, well, any quarterback could succeed in Seattle because he has DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. Now, that was more of an argument people made last year, I think, because Lockett's not really much of anything anymore. I get that. But let's recast this argument here. All right? Why did Sam Howell play so bad last night? Partially because of him, but because you saw how bad a job this Seahawks team does at supporting their quarterback. One of the worst offensive lines. They have good receivers and they have skilled running backs and rookie coaches. Like last year, you could have maybe scraped together a little bit of an argument because Seattle had a veteran coach that had seen everything, like Pete Carroll. As much as he had kind of lost his mojo at the end there, he was still a veteran coach who had you couldn't throw anything at him that he hadn't seen before. And they had an offensive coordinator who was entering his third year. And while he wasn't very good, at the very least, he had a lot of familiarity and he had a lot of time to set things up the way he wanted to set them up. So maybe you could have made that argument last year. And like you look at last year, Drew Lock was actually able to look mostly competent when he got into games. It was, thin. I wasn't like super excited about Drew Lock last year. I thought for the most part he was lackluster, but he did have some good moments. But this year now, you've got a head coach, rookie head coach, never been a head coach before, and you've got an offensive coordinator that has never worked in the NFL before, and that's on top of the fact that you've got no offensive line. Like, at a certain point, the fact that you have good receivers is just kind of window dressing. Like, you can't even get to your really good receivers because you've got no protection. You've got no help up front. You don't have any balance because you can't run the ball consistently. And sometimes you can run the ball, but then, like last night, you have to abandon it because the defense is playing terribly. And you've got coaches who are learning on the fly. This is not a situation where a quarterback can be expected to succeed, right? Sam Howell's not a good quarterback, but he's not that bad. We saw a year's worth of evidence in 2023 of that. He's a below average to bad quarterback. He's not a horrific quarterback, but you plug him into Seattle. And honestly, I know people are going to say, oh, we threw him into the Wolves. We see backup quarterbacks go in and play well because the other team wasn't game planning for them. Like, how many times have we seen a backup quarterback go in for an injured starter and then just make a bunch of plays early on because the defense wasn't ready for them? So that argument, I think, actually, you could flip it the other way pretty easily. So and the conclusion, and I'm sorry, I know people are sick of hearing about this, but it needs to be said, especially after something like yesterday, is that for whatever he's not doing, Geno Smith is doing a pretty special job making this team go at an average offensive level. Because a lot of quarterbacks, you plug them into Seattle's system, you'd get results not that different from what you got from Sam Howell last night. So, there. So, that was a much longer video than I wanted it to be, but I really wanted to make sure I got my point across here. So, just something to think about this morning. Like, if you learned anything from last night, it should be that maybe we don't have the best quarterback in the league. There are quarterbacks out there better than him. There are quarterbacks who you could plug into Seattle and get better results from. You could, if you took a Joe Burrow and put him into Seattle, I'm sure we'd be doing better than we are with Geno. If you took a Josh Allen, I'm sure we'd be doing better than we are with Geno. There are a few other quarterbacks like that too. But there really aren't that many. The ones that are there, you cannot really get almost ever. And at the end of the day, most of these quarterbacks that you can get, I mean, pretty much all of them, especially the young ones, especially the rookies, you try to plug them into this situation. Last night, Sam Howell gave you a preview of what you're going to get. And I know some people are going to come and say, oh, I'm cool with that. I want to tank. I want to lose. I want to win 2 games next year. No, you don't. I've seen you guys. You guys can't handle watching 3 bad plays in a row without peeing all over yourselves. I see it constantly in my comments. I have a Discord server that blows up after every Seahawks play good or bad or neutral. You can't handle that kind of losing. You'd be checked out by week 4. Y'all can't handle that. Y'all don't want to see that. Y'all do not want to see the kind of stuff that we saw yesterday across a full season. And even if you were able to handle something like that, you know who can handle something like that is Mike McDonald. He wants to win. Also, John Schneider can't handle it. He wants to win. You don't throw away seasons unless you have no choice. So, If you learned anything from last night, I think the thing you should learn is that Geno Smith is really good. You have to be really good to get even average results out of this offense right now. And hopefully one of these days, the Seahawks will come out the other side of this and they'll actually have an offensive system that can supplement positively the quarterback. We've been waiting for it for a few years now. It's not there yet. If anything, we've taken steps backwards because we want to eventually move forward. But we're not that far away, potentially. If Ryan Grubb ends up being the guy, then it could happen next year. You need to bring in a few new offensive linemen. You need to get an offensive coordinator or have the offensive coordinator that you have understand how things work in the NFL a little bit better. I'm not saying it's guaranteed. But what I am saying is that, if nothing else, understand how good we do have it in some regards. See ya.